Hello everybody and welcome to the beginning of our revamped How to Make an Avatar series. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Chin and I am a full-time 3D avatar creator for vrchat as well as an asset creator. But this series is going to be about how to make your very own vrchat avatar. We're going to go from start to finish, all the way from Blender to Unity. We're going to cover things like how to navigate these programs, how to put multiple different outfits or hairs or accessories on your avatar, set up all the toggles, materials, everything that you need to know to make your own avatar, and potentially even get into being a creator and selling avatars yourself. If you have already been around with my channel, welcome back. Some of you guys may know I made this series last year in 2023, but I didn't have a very good mic back then, and I have actually learned quite a lot since I last made that series. So I wanted to make a new series, revamp it, have some better audio, have better setup, as well as some better tips and tricks that can help you guys when it comes to making your avatar. So this video is just kind of a little introduction to prepare you guys for what you're going to need throughout this series. We're going to cover the different programs, websites that you'll need, things like that, before we actually start creating our avatar. So if you already know all the tools and the websites and everything that you need, feel free to skip to the next video. But if you are brand new starting out, I highly suggest go ahead and giving this video a watch so that we can make sure you have everything ready. And that way, whenever we reference it later on in the later videos and you already kind of have an idea of what you're looking for, what websites to go to, and you already have everything downloaded and installed. So with that, let's go ahead and get started and take a look at what all we will need to start preparing to make an avatar. Okay, so first things first, we're going to take a look at the different programs, add-ons, and websites that we're going to need to be able to, build our avatar, as well as find the assets that we need. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to review asset usage and terms of service. But first, let's take a look at the programs. So one of the first things that you'll need is Blender. Blender is the program that you pretty much put everything together. So imagine if you have a Lego set, Blender is where you would put all the pieces together to build your set, and then Unity is where we're going to make it function and do things like toggles, have fizz bones, things like that. Blender is free. Everything to make an avatar as far as programs is free, and there are lots of free assets, but we'll cover that in a second. To download Blender, since this is where the beginning of the avatar creation is going to be starting, just go to blender.org/download. Blender version doesn't necessarily matter. There's a little bit of a caveat to that. I personally use, I believe it's 3.2. Some creators use 4.0. Let's see, I believe if we go to releases. So as you can see, there's a ton of different Blender versions. I use 3.0. But you can use any of these, 3.4, 3.5. You can even go up to some of the newer versions with 4.3. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to building an avatar. The only times that Blender versions really matter is depending on different add-ons or extensions that you're wanting to use. The only other time I've seen it affect my avatar creation is whenever I would commission somebody for like a quest conversion of one of my avatars, and if we use different versions and they're too far apart, like say I'm using 3.0 and the person I'm commissioning is using 4.1, that might affect things. It might be a little bit difficult on import. Some things might not import properly, but since Blender is completely free, very easy to download, you just download the installer, click go, and it will install on your computer just like normal. There's nothing really extra. Then if you do ever run into that issue where you need to upgrade or go back to a previous version of Blender, just come back to this page and download whatever version you need. But other than that, just for basic avatar creation, it doesn't really matter. Any version works. You can even go back to the much older versions if you would feel more comfortable with that. Just know that the UI and the layout will be different the further back that you go, since these are getting much older. So like if you're on 2.9, then the UI and the layout, where your buttons are, where, you know, your navigation systems are, might be a little different than if you're on 3.0 or even 4.0. I have not touched anything past the 3.0. I think at one point I played around in 3.2. So if you are going to install a newer Blender, just know it might look different than mine, and I'm not too sure how to navigate it. But this is what I use if you want to have the exact same Blender version that I do for the sake of this tutorial. So this is where you would go ahead and download that, and that kind of covers the Blender versions. The next step, once you complete your avatar in Blender, you want to go put it into Unity. You can just search up Unity download, but it's unity.com/download is where you're going to go to actually get it downloaded. This is a little bit different, and this actually is very, very important to make sure that you do have the correct Unity version installed. So just kind of for an example, let me pull up my store on why I'm going to say that this is important. This is one of my latest avatars that I've put out at the time of recording this series. And if we scroll all the way down here, you'll see on my requirements, I have this very specific Unity version. But if we go to, let's say, one of my older avatars, let's scroll down here to someone pretty old. Let's go to Alex. And if we scroll all the way down, you'll see that the Unity version is different. So this is a 2019.4.31 F1. And yes, the last digits and the numbers are very important. There are a ton of Unity versions, just like there are Blender versions. So vrchat is actually running on 2022. We used to all create in 2019 Blender, or I'm sorry, Unity. But since they have upgraded to 2024, they have now done something called Creator Companion. So they used to have like a different add-on that you would install into Unity called the SDK, which is basically what allows you to upload your avatar to the program of vrchat. But now they have their own thing called Creator Companion. So I'm going to try to keep this as even as possible, but Unity and the Creator Companion kind of go hand in hand. So we're going to talk about them together. To download the Creator Companion, just go to your vrchat.com, go ahead and log into your account. You're going to head over here on the side where it says download, and you'll get it downloaded right here where it says setting up the SDK and Creator Companion. I think that this should lead you to the SD or the Creator Companion, but just to be safe, go ahead and click this button that says download the Creator Companion so that you make sure you're downloading the correct thing. Creator Companion is kind of like Unity Hub. So on the Unity page, it mentions Unity Hub. I would not recommend installing this. Not only is it really not needed since vrchat has made their Creator Companion, when I have had Unity Hub installed, it caused a lot of problems for me in my projects and would randomly like delete things or not load things. So I would avoid that and just download Unity directly. So this is download Unity Hub and then download your Unity version. I would go to the download archive right there instead of the first button where it was talking about the hub, and we can click on 2022, and as you can see, a million different versions of Unity just under 2022 versions. So Creator Companion, I believe once it starts like downloading, it will tell you, but without scrolling through all this, let me just go ahead and open up Creator Companion so that you guys can see exactly what version that we're needing. But I believe it is the 2022.3, but we'll double check it. Let me give that a second to open. So Creator Companion has opened. These are all my projects. We will cover this more later in detail whenever we actually go to this point. But if we go to 2022 avatar project, you can see it here. Let me find. Okay, so I took a look through their Creator Companion link questions and stuff, and it didn't really dawn on me that they're not going to have a set Unity version that you'll need. As of right now, the most recent version that Creator Companion is up to date for is this 2022.3.2020 or 0.22 F1. I'm so sorry. It is a mouthful to speak. So if we come down here, it is right here. We can go ahead and install. So the reason why I can't find a specific quote unquote Unity version for Creator Companion. Is the best way to explain it is the Creator Companion is constantly updating. So this is their way to give us Fizzbones, give like they're setting up stuff themselves that is available in Unity, but that is more, I guess, like optimized for vrchat is a good way to put it, like parent constraints and stuff, which you don't need to worry about that right now. But basically what this is getting at is they have all their own stuff that lets you put the avatars into vrchat, and since they're constantly updating that, then they do sometimes update Creator Companion to be with a newer version of Unity. So like before we were on this one, which was 3.19, and then they moved up to the 21, and now we're on the 22. So it will, on Creator Companion, if there's ever an update, it will pop up whenever you click create a new project. It'll pop up here at the top, or once you actually start creating the project, and it'll have a little like notice, and it'll say, oh, Creator Companion is now using, or vrchat is now using this version of Unity. So then to upgrade that, it most of the time in Creator Companion will give you a button to download it right then and there, and it'll just kind of do it on the back end for you. But if it doesn't, you can just head back over to this page on the Unity download site and download whatever new version that vrchat and Creator Companion are using. So this is very important to keep up to date, because right now, if you were to go through and try to download like 2019, like some of my older avatars that I pointed out were created in 2019, and you were trying to put them into a Unity 2022 project, since there's so many versions in between the version that the avatar was created and the version that vrchat is now using, stuff might not update properly. So when you buy an avatar, that's why all of us creators make sure to put this on our page, or most of us do, because if you're using a different Unity version than what the avatar was created in, it could cause problems. As well as if you're using a different Unity version than the one that vrchat is currently running through, then it could also cause problems. So that's why Unity versions are actually super duper important versus Blender isn't so much, because Blender is just where we're putting all the pieces together. Unity is what is actually connecting it to vrchat. So definitely keep an eye on the Unity versions right now. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that this is the most up-to-date version that vrchat is using and their Creator Companion is using. By the time these tutorial videos release, or if you're watching this in the future, that might change. So just be aware and keep an eye on your Creator Companion to know if that updates. So just kind of want to toss that out there. As far as UI or layouts of Unity, nothing really should change drastically between now and then. Unity doesn't really overhaul a whole lot of it. It did a really big change from 2019 to 2022. But as far as I'm aware of, I don't think too much has changed in the 2023 versions, but even if it has, vrchat is a ways away from upgrading to 2023. So just kind of keep that in mind, that some things might change, and keep an eye out for that. So that is Unity and Creator Companion. Like I said, they kind of go hand in hand. Both very easy to download and install. Same thing as Blender, just kind of click it. It'll put an installer in your downloads, run that installer, and you should be set. So those are really the main three programs that we need for creating an avatar. You mostly need Blender to put the things together, Unity to make it function, and Creator Companion to run alongside Unity to actually put it into vrchat. But there are a few other websites and things that I would like to discuss that I find make creating just a lot easier, a lot more helpful, as well as start getting a little bit into how you're going to find your assets and discussing reading over an assets page. One of the things that I use daily in Blender, and a lot of creators don't, and for those that hate what I'm about to say, I'm so sorry. I like it. It works for me. This program can be finicky. Some creators absolutely hate it. It breaks their stuff. They refuse to use it, but other creators like me find it very, very helpful and use it on the daily. So since, a lot of these programs are individually installed on all of our computers, and it's not something like an actual website where it's going to be user spread if something breaks, just kind of keep that in mind that, some people might say to not use it, but I like it. And yes, I am talking about the Cat's Blender plugin. The Cat's Blender plugin, I don't know how to explain it. I just find it very helpful. There's ways that you can do a lot of the stuff that, the plugin allows for in Blender manually, like you can do things, but I just find that the Cats plugin is much faster, much easier, as well as a lot more user-friendly, instead of taking hours to learn how to do something, or starting to pull up things like, Photoshop and photo editing programs to, utilize this texture mapping or merging textures. You could do that with Cats. So that's all stuff that we can cover later, but I recommend Cats. Personally, I use it to merge armatures, and I will only be merging armatures through this tutorial. I have attempted to merge armatures manually. I'm just going to put out this as a warning before, and I struggle a lot with merging armatures manually. So for my tutorial, Cats is going to be recommended and pretty much required, but it is not fully required to make an avatar. Just know that some of the things that I'm going to be doing through Cats, if you don't want to use it, you might want to go look up some other tutorials on how to do those things manually, because not everything that Cats offers I am familiar with how to do manually enough to the point that I would feel comfortable putting it in a tutorial, because it's one of those things that I have the general idea of, but I'm not super familiar enough to where I would feel comfortable teaching it. So last time, just going to throw it out there, Cats is going to be required for this tutorial. For all of you other creators that hate Cats, please don't yell at me. So you can just Google search Cats plugin. A few different websites will pop up. I'm not going to scroll down. We're not going to acknowledge those websites. The only one that you want to acknowledge is GitHub. So it's from Absolute Quantum. You can come here, you can scroll down, and you can download the plugin. Something very important about this plugin, like we talked about earlier with the different Blender versions, right? So like I said, with creating an avatar, it's not super duper important, but if you are wanting to use one of the newest versions of Blender, anything 4.0 and up, Cats is not guaranteed to work. It is not, I don't think, like fully updated for the Blender 4.0s and up, but I do believe, I think if you join their Discord server down here, that they have like an alpha or a beta version out to work in 4.0. But I'm not entirely sure like how far in, since there's all the way up to 4.3, that they have like, these demo versions of Cats available. And I'm not too sure if it is set up any different, or if there's any like kinks and fixes that need to be done. Like I'm not too sure. So do keep that in mind if you're going to use Cats and Blender, that if you're going to use a newer version of Blender, Cats might not work. It is known for sure to work all the way up to 3.6, I believe, or 3.5. I'm not too familiar with the LTS versions of Blender, but 4.0 Cats is not going to be your friend. So keep that in mind. You might need to join their server and download their like beta versions of Cats if you're wanting to use 4.0 and up. So that is the pretty much only Blender plugin that I use personally. But if you head over to Blender Marketplace, you can head over to this website, and there is tons and tons and tons of really, really cool Blender add-ons. There's brushes, there's tools, there's like, I don't know, just like little plugins that you can do that'll make different things easier. Like this one's for lighting, this one does something to do with rigging, this one's for UV unpacking, which is more for asset creating, but there's tons that you can do. Some of them are free, like Cats, some of them are not. Blender Market, I think, is more for like, like rendering and like the cool like videos that people will make through Blender. So it has a lot to do with like lighting and like rigging. So it's more for like creating like, bases or assets. So that's why Cats is not a part of Blender Market. They're not really associated with that, but Cats is very trustworthy, used very widely throughout the community, so you're fine. But if you want more like brushes, like if you're wanting to get into asset creating, which I'll have tutorials on that done as well, and you want to start looking at maybe some fancier brushes to help you with like folds on your clothing or something, Blender Market's a really good place to check for stuff like that. So I just wanted to toss that out there. Not mandatory at all whatsoever. I only use cats when it comes to avatar creating, and I don't have any other Blender plugins, but Blender plugins can be super duper helpful. And there's lots out there for you to explore. So that's a good place for you to check that out. The last thing that we're going to talk about is finding your assets. So now that you have all of your websites, all of your programs, we have Blender, Unity, Creator Companion installed. And if you're going to be following along with me, we have cats downloaded and ready to go in Blender, which I will show you how to set that up. But I do believe they have a tutorial as well. But we've got everything set up. So we're ready to start making our avatar, but we don't know really what we want to put on it. I cannot recommend Jinxxy enough. Gumroad is a website many of you guys are probably familiar with, and they do have a discovery place, and I think PayHip also made a marketplace. But I prefer Jinxxy. I don't know. It just feels a lot more versatile and more connected to a lot of other creators. I don't know really of any creator that doesn't use Jinxxy. So pretty much all of us are on here. You can have avatars, you can have assets, you can have clothing, worlds, anything, and just about everything is on Jinxxy. Just a little disclaimer, I guess, when it comes to searching for assets. If you go, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to acknowledge the website, but if you go on Google and you search vrchat t-shirt, right, and you hit enter, if you find any website that takes you to, let's say we were wanting this, and you click it, takes forever to load, and it doesn't link you back to Jinxxy, Shopify, Selfie, or PayHip, or Gumroad are the only 5 platforms that I'm aware of that most creators use. Now, they might have a different URL, like Nessie, a very, very well-known hair creator, has a custom URL, so hers will say nessie.co. Right, but if you see here on this thumbnail, it says fill my pantry, and that's not a part of the URL. It's not posted anywhere. Their logo's not posted anywhere. And without getting into it too much, basically what I'm saying is if it takes you to a website where you can download Fill My Pantry's tie right alongside Nessie's hair, right alongside my clothing, without ever changing the actual website herself or linking back to the original creator, don't use that website. There are pirating websites out there that leak our stuff. It is highly illegal. Lots of people have gotten sued and DMCA'd for it. So please, please, please be very careful of what websites you are using, and only use websites that link directly back to the creator, or something like Jinxxy that is trusted and known because this is linking back to Pantry's profile here on Jinxxy. So Jinxxy is the only service that I know that does this, because Gumroad and PayHip, things like that, still link you back to the creator's profile per se, but Jinxxy has a more widespread search function and much more controlled search function than Gumroad does. I'm not too familiar with PayHip's, so reasons why I highly recommend Jinxxy is because I feel like it's a lot easier for us to be able to find anything that you want. So what you can do here on Jinxxy is you can actually come down. So let's say, you can use these too, but let's say we wanted to look up t-shirt. You could search it up here. It's going to pull up everything that has to do with t-shirts. So this avatar has t-shirt. These are promoted. That's t-shirt. That one has a t-shirt. Da, 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 da. Right? So you're like, okay, well, Chen, these are pulling up avatars. I want assets. You can actually use this filter section. You could put in a minimum, maximum price. You can search it for if it's sold directly on Jinxxy, because Jinxxy will let you create an account. And what's really cool about Jinxxy is if I buy from 5 different creators through their accounts on Jinxxy, it's going to give me one universal library to where when I log into my personal account, all 5 of those creators' assets will show up in my one library, a lot like Gumroad. So it's really, really cool. It's super duper helpful versus things like PayHip, I think, is rolling out a universal library, but at this time of this recording, they don't have it out quite yet. But like my Shopify page, I absolutely love my Shopify store. It's very customizable for me as a creator, but it does not give my customers that kind of an opportunity to be able to have multiple creators' assets or avatars downloaded in one place. So that's what I, recommend on Jinxxy. So if you select this sold on Jinxxy, that's something that you might want to look into so that you can keep everything directly through your library. Because what Jinxxy will do is, let me see if I can find one. Yeah, so like this person, oh no, it's still linked back to Jinxxy. Well, that's wonderful for them. I'm happy. Okay, Yamu. Yamu has a Gumroad website, right? But we just found their t-shirt on Jinxxy. That's why Jinxxy is trusted, is because even though we found it here, it took us straight back over to Yamu's official Gumroad page, and then we can download it from here. So as far as filters, Sell on Jinxxy is very helpful for if you want to keep everything universal. You can also do Western and Eastern markets. The Eastern market is primarily going to be for booth things, which be very careful about looking for things on booth, because a lot of booth assets are not allowed for commercial use. So be very careful with that. But you can search tags, you know, you can do sorting, all this kind of crazy stuff. What I like to do is I'll come up here to the clothing. This is going to restrict it to where it's not going to be giving me avatars. It's going to be for anybody that has uploaded let's go back to our filter and let's put in a t-shirt for $10. And I don't really care about anything else. So let's go ahead and hit search. This is going to pull up anybody that either the title says t-shirt, you could check mark where it says description. So it might not be in the title, but it might be in the description. Or if they put a tag on their product to be under clothing, or maybe they put in a tag to say t-shirt. So now it's going to pop up all these different options. So I can just browse through 6 pages worth of t-shirts to find what I want. So I highly recommend Jinxxy when it comes to looking for assets to start building your avatar. I can't recommend it enough. It is super helpful when it comes to finding assets, when it comes to avatars. And what's great is if I see an avatar that I like, I can be like, okay, I really, really like this piece of clothing on this avatar. Once it loads, I can come back down to the credits, which they made most of their stuff from scratch, but I'm like, okay, I really want that head. Now I can click this and I can go find the head. So it's really easy to find assets that you want. Sometimes it does take a little bit of digging, but there's all kinds of ways you can do it. If you see something on an avatar, check the credits list. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to cover Jinxxy, how to navigate it, how to search on it, as well as cover what websites are trusted to use and find assets from. Booth is perfectly fine to use assets from. There's nothing wrong with it. Some creators that I know have their own booth accounts. Just be aware that some booth assets and creators don't allow for commercial use if you are planning on selling your avatar. That is going to lead us into our next topic and our very last thing that we're going to cover in this video, which is TOS, Terms of Service. So let's head over to my store real quick so I can give you guys an explanation. Oh, let me do this one. I don't want to pull up my tail because it got a booty in it. So something very, very, very important that I can't stress enough whenever it comes to starting avatar creation is please, please, please make sure to read the descriptions of the assets that you are buying for multiple reasons. Reading the descriptions will help you figure out, is it rigged? Is it weight painted to the base that I want? Am I going to need to sculpt it? So if I have an asset for Zenpia's Fit base, but I really want to use, Panda's base, or the Venus base, or a different one of Zenpia's bases, am I going to need to be prepared that it's not fit and sculpted and rigged? All that kind of stuff, which is something we will cover in future videos. Is it super duper crazy high poly? Is it not? Which is also something we'll cover in just a second, but it's just very helpful to kind of get your information, but more importantly is the terms of service. So if you look here on my terms of service for this asset, it says you may use this asset on commercial, private, and public avatars, but it is not allowed to be used, or it is allowed to be used for commissioned avatars, but it is not allowed to be used for free avatars, because don't say it there, and it says it right here, not allowed for use on free or nitro avatars. What this means is if you are wanting to make an avatar and you're watching the series just to start learning how to make avatars for yourself, that is considered personal use. Only you are going to be touching or using that avatar in any capacity. Personal use. Commercial means that you're going to be selling it out to the masses and making income off of that avatar, right? And then public is, as we all know, you can go in vrchat into public worlds. And some creators, might allow it for free and not for public. Some might allow for public and not for free. So it's very, very different on what each creator prefers, and especially on each asset. A lot of the times paid assets will not be allowed for use on free or nitro avatars, and most of the time free assets will be, but not always. So make sure to please, please, please check the TOS and be very careful to make sure that you aren't using something illegally. The reason I say that is because it can become a very big problem, not only for the creator, because it's going against their terms, which is, a legal issue, but it can also get you in trouble. If you let's say you bought this pup set, which says specifically not to use on any free or nitro avatars, at checkout you agreed to follow those terms, but then you ended up putting it out for free, even if it was an accident on an avatar for free, it can get you in trouble, and a lot of creators will talk to you about it, and if it was a mistake, let that slide. But there are people out there that have bad intentions, so please understand that this can get you in trouble, especially if it's a repeated issue of you not following terms of service. It can lead to being banned from creator stores or servers. So please be very careful, and please be respectful that when it comes to these assets that you're buying or downloading for free, a lot of time and work goes into making these. So the least things that we can do is just respect the creator's terms that we're agreeing to whenever we buy their products. So that's one of the biggest things that I wanted to talk about when it comes to buying assets, just to double check your terms. Make sure that what you're planning on putting out for that avatar, whether it's free, commercial, private, or even for nitro, that your asset that you're looking at buying is allowed for whatever you're intending it for. The last thing before we wrap this up is kind of what I mentioned earlier about like rigging and poly counts. If you're somewhat familiar with avatar creating, you might already know what I'm talking about, but if not, poly count is basically the individual like 3D vertices is technically what they're called, but it's basically how hefty, I guess, is the asset that you're using. Is it something that's a lot of polys and it's a lot of all these little tiny dots and all these different planes or whatever in Blender to make it, that's going to lag out your computer and especially lag out people if you use it in vrchat? Or is it low poly? Is it optimized, but maybe it doesn't have as much smooth curves or whatever the case may be? It's something that you will kind of get used to looking for as you're searching through different assets. Most avatars, I would say now, before I say this, vrchat is and has been going through and changing their upload limits lately, especially with Quest users. So Quest users, a reason a lot of creators can't make Quest avatars is Quest is not allowed to go over a specific poly count or a specific upload limit. So I believe, well, I'm not too familiar with Quest, but I do know optimized. So for an optimized avatar, a green rating avatar, you can't go over, I believe it's 70,000 poly. So, but if your base alone, the body alone is 30,000, right? And then the head is another 20,000. That doesn't give you a whole lot of wiggle room. There are ways to optimize and, prepare for optimizing your avatar, whether it's for a green rating avatar or a quest, but that's something that we can cover much, much later down the road, or I can do separate tutorials on. But most avatars that we see for PC users that have a few outfits, a few hairs, are somewhere around 300 to 4,000, or sorry, 400,000, 300 to 400,000 polys. Sometimes they can be higher, sometimes they can be lower, but that's kind of the typical that you see. So if you're looking through and you're like, okay, the lighted up set, which this is old, I'm sorry, it's kind of high poly, is 28,000 polys or 45 for the tail, then that kind of helps you gauge on how high poly that asset is, so that whenever you go to look for your clothing or something, you might want to look for something lower, or maybe you don't want to use this tail since it is a little high poly. Maybe you just want to use the normal tail, which is only 11,000. That gives you a lot more room for other things. So just kind of look over your assets page. If you use too many high poly assets, big disclaimer here, if you download too many high poly assets, your Blender will most likely lag. There's a solid chance you won't be allowed to upload it to vrchat. It can cause a lot of problems. So please be mindful, don't go crazy. Like I said, the normal is normally somewhere around 300 to 400,000, sometimes 500,000 if you're really getting into a hefty avatar. vrchat, I can't really speak on their uploading limits because I think within this past like 2-3 weeks, it's changed like 2 or 3 times. So I can't really tell you guys right now in this tutorial where it's at, since it's constantly changing. But keep an eye on it. And whenever we get to the Unity stage, it will tell you, it'll have like a little pop-up on your window. It won't do it through Creator Companion, it'll be in Unity, but on the SDK that vrchat connects to Unity, it will tell you if it's too high. And if it is, it'll tell you, and it'll say like, oh, you know, the minimum requirement is this and the maximum is this. So it might say the maximum is 400,000 polys and you're sitting at 450. So either you need to go through and optimize or remove some stuff. So that's what this kind of information is. It's not overly important if you're just making pretty simple basic avatars or just a personal with like an outfit or two for yourself, because you won't really be hitting any of those limits. But if you are wanting to get into commercial avatars and you know you're planning on putting multiple outfits or hairs on it, that is something you will want to keep in mind. Another thing that you can do to kind of gauge, so like this is one of my best selling avatars, her name is Malara, and what I do and I require in my own marketplace in my server is stats. So if you have this avatar, or if you end up buying it and you're like, okay, this has, or you look through the page and you're like, okay, she has 3 different outfits, 4 different hairs, particle systems, blah, 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 blah. What is she looking at? You can come and pull this up. A lot of creators will have the stats of their avatar on their page, and that'll kind of help you gauge like how many assets or how many hairs, or what creators' assets, like, oh, this person makes low poly hair, this person makes high poly hair, whatever. It'll kind of help you gauge. There's ways that you can do your research if that's something that you're wanting to look into. But like I said, if you're just making basic, you know, personal avatars, or maybe a really basic free or nitro avatar just to get started, or publics, then it's not really something you have to worry about. But I do know some people have used my tutorials to start getting into selling commercial avatars. So if that's something that you are looking into doing and you want to do a little bit more research to prepare, then that's something that you can do to kind of get a gauge on what, you know, a typical avatar with this many outfits and hairs or whatever would be when it comes to sizing, so that you don't run into issues later on in Unity. So I think that's pretty much it for now when it comes to this first video. So let's go ahead and head over to our wrap up and prepare for the next video. Alrighty, so I'm sorry that was kind of long-winded, but there is quite a few different programs that I wanted to run you guys through, websites, and just little things like we talked about, like with the poly count, with terms of service, things like websites like Jinxxy or Gumroad to find the different assets. So sorry that it was potentially a little bit of a long introduction video per se, but I wanted to be able to run you guys through all of these different programs and websites so that you're prepared for whenever we move on to our next videos. So I would suggest, before we start on the next video, to go ahead and go through on Jinxxy or Gumroad or Payhip, wherever you're searching. But I use Jinxxy, so I'm probably going to refer to it a lot. So go through wherever you are buying from, or if there's a creator's shop that you've been eyeing, go ahead and download whatever assets you're wanting to use. Again, make sure, please, to check the TOS that you're using the assets for the project, you know, and that everything lines up correctly. But go ahead and get everything downloaded, save it to a folder. What I normally recommend is saving it to a folder that you're familiar with, and you can title it something like the name of your avatar or my first avatar, whatever. But have it saved somewhere that'll be easy for you to get back to. Put all of your assets that you're wanting to use there. And make sure to have your base downloaded and your head downloaded. It's not something I covered when we were looking through Jinxxy, but one of the most popular bases that I see being used is by Zenpia. So you could search that up on Jinxxy and take a look at different avatars using that base. See if that's something you might like, or find an avatar that you already use all the time and look that up and go to that creator's store page and you can see what base they used or what head they used. But go ahead and get everything downloaded so that whenever we move on into our Blender series, or part of this series, that you already have everything prepared and unzipped if it's in a zipped folder, so that way we can just kind of move on. And then whenever we get done with Blender, we'll head straight over into Creator Companion /Unity, and you already will have those downloaded as well from watching this video. So that being said, the next video will be starting to put our avatar together in Blender. We're not going to do like all of it in one video. Putting our avatar together in Blender is going to be spread out over multiple different videos because there's a few different tips and tricks that I would like to implement into this series. Please note, not all of the tips and tricks that I'm going to be discussing or the videos are going to be necessary. So for like example, I'm wanting to do a video in this series for head sculpting. So how to make your own custom head sculpt so that you can go from the base head to something more customized to maybe fit your style, maybe make your avatar stand out a little bit more. But that's not necessary for creating an avatar. So if there's videos like that you want to skip, feel free. I'm doing my best to keep everything sectioned between what is necessary for building an avatar and what is not, and just kind of more of a quality of life or a little extra thing. So the videos are going to be pretty spread out, especially for Blender and putting everything together. So just be aware that we're not going to put everything together in one solid video because there's quite a few things that I would like to cover, as well as things to discuss to maybe help you avoid issues later on down the road when it comes to things like clipping or weight painting issues. We're going to try to cover as much of that as possible in Blender so that we don't have to go backwards once we get our avatar into Unity. But next video will be at least starting. So we're going to take a look at Blender, how to navigate it, how to import things, get things sized, lined up properly. And then after that, we will start looking at doing custom sculpts, weight painting, merging armatures, all that kind of fun stuff. So I will see you guys in Blender. Thank you very much for watching the introduction video. If you guys ever have any questions throughout this series, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I do my best to reply to them as quickly as I can, but if I am taking a little while to get back to you guys, if it's taking me about a day or two, feel free to join my server. I have questions channels in my server, and I don't mind answering questions from the tutorials in my Discord server. Okay, sorry for that cut there. I had to sneeze. So like I was saying, yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. If I'm taking a day or two to reply, you're more than welcome to join my server. You can join my server regardless, if you would like to. My server is where I keep all the updates for my own avatars and assets. We do have a marketplace for other people to sell their avatars and assets as well. We occasionally run giveaways, sales, things like that, but we also have help questions and sections like that dedicated to helping people with either my avatars or building their own. I can't always guarantee I'm going to be able to solve the issue if it's an avatar that you're building or if it's somebody else's avatar, just because I don't have it directly in front of me. But we definitely do our best, me and my mods throughout there, to try to help. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to join there. Or if you just want to hang out and get to know the community that I have, feel free to join the server. Other than that, you are more than welcome to ask questions here in the YouTube comments, and I will do my best to help as much as possible. So I think that's pretty much it, and we're good to wrap up this introduction video. So thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.